Seems legit. Hey Legitimates, welcome back. I know this pattern's been out for a while, but I'm finally getting to do a video. It is the Purse Pal by LindsHamndmade. It is super fun, very quick. My whole video was like 20 minutes to make it. And I used my cutting machine. So my new Cricut Maker 3, I had to just check that, is what I've used to cut it, or the outside vinyl. The vinyl is Inkling's and the Kraken's Buttery Smooth. I love this stuff. Same with the red, actually. It's her, I think it's called Plain But Not Lame. But it's all basically buttery smooth in solid and printed. It feels amazing. It sews amazing. So let's get started. So I will be using my Cricut Maker 3 to be cutting out this entire exterior. The lining I still just cut as normal, but the exterior can be cut on the machine while I manually do the other part. So it just cuts down some time. And more importantly, this does all of the card slots, so I don't have to sit there and do them. And I like that. It will go over everything twice so that it's definitely cut. Now you possibly will see some puckers with this particular vinyl. That is because I think my blade might be blunt already. I haven't had it long, but I cut some paper, which if it's the same as scissors, once you cut paper, it automatically goes a little bit more blunt. But it did still cut it. I could still take it off the board. You just get a few little ripples. Okay, so I've been cutting a whole bunch of these, and the dragon one is awesome. So that's what we're going to do this time. You watched a different one be cut. And I cut one of each color so that you can have the choice later to do it opposite or the same or whatever you want. So I have put no tape on so that you can see me do this. This is a really quick project. I love how quick these are. So we're just going to I'm just going to use 1/4 inch tape on both edges of this part here. And then while I've got the tape, let's tape everything. So I'm going to put a line of tape underneath each of the card slot parts. While this is a rippable tape, I do personally find this easier to just snip. That's just me. Underneath, trim. Up the top here, I'm also going to put another piece. So that's just within the seam allowance there. And while we're doing double-sided taping, let's also grab our lining piece. Now I'm just using waterproof canvas for everything because it's lightweight, it's cheap, and it's easy. It'll just fold where I tell it to fold. And I like that. So I'm going to put a piece each side of the long edge. And I'm going to put a little piece in that's going to hold this little triangle down as well. Now it doesn't matter that this will be outside of the lines because we are in fact going to stick this to the lining eventually. And the other piece of double-sided tape we can put is each side of this hole, and that will hold down our zipper tape. And I'm just doing it all at once because then half of that is done. Now I'm going to start with my card slots. This is the part that takes the longest, so I like to start here because once they're done, it's just a quick hop, step, and a jump, and the whole thing's finished. So I'm going to take my card slots and I'm going to put it right sides down over my double-sided tape like that. I always run my finger along it to push it in place. I am on a 4-stitch length, and I'm just going to start just underneath. I'm going to do 1 stitch and then back stitch, and then stitch across to the other end and back stitch. Now you can pull these through and tie them off, but the whole point of these is they're a quick make to just add some extra things to my market store. So this is my little template that I've made. It's just the measurement that you have to measure down for a card slot, right? And I've just made it a square, so it doesn't matter which sides I grab. You can do this too. The pattern actually measures up from the bottom, and then you measure up each time. I like my template because it's a bit thicker and easy to use than a downwards thing. So I'm going to fold that down, stick it to my tape, and then unpeel the next one up. And then I'm going to fold this down, crease it, and I like to use this as an added creaser, and then I smooth from the bottom up, and that should now be stuck to the next bit of tape under the next lot of card slots. So we're going to stitch and back stitch. Now, if I was doing these in leather, I would probably pull them through and tie them off. Not to say that these are any less awesome. They are totally awesome. But I don't like back stitching leather as much as I mind doing with vinyl. Vinyl's got a like woven backing to it so that it's not just leather. Pull up the next one, smooth it down. This is way quicker and looks just as good. It's only one stitch at each end. So we go down, back. It's just one stitch to lock everything in, so it doesn't look that messy. If you did like back stitching along the whole thing, that's a bit different. But that's not what we're doing. So there shouldn't be an issue. And then I'm just going to smooth that down, grab the next one. It is very repetitive to do card slots, but I also find it quite therapeutic. It also doesn't take a lot of concentration, so if you want to watch a show and just spend the day doing card slots, it is quite easy to do without stuffing them up. It's just the same process over and over and over. Ah! My snips are getting blunt. I will deal with that later. Another piece of double-sided tape. Now, you don't have to put the tape here. I just find it easier to hold them all down and in place. And glue's a bit excessive. They don't have to be stuck together. We do it so that we can get the fold easier to where we need it. Like that, smooth up, flip over, stitch, back stitch, stitch, back stitch. It's that simple. Alright, measure, stick, peel, fold, and then peel, fold. So we're nearly done with the card slot. So this is the part that takes the longest, and then after this, it's fairly quick. Stitch, back stitch, stitch, back stitch. Doesn't need to be a lot. It just holds everything in place. This is the last one. So even though we're at the last hole, we've still got to make that last loop. So we stick. You can rip the tape. It's just a habit that I have to cut it. I will try and get out of it by the end of the year. Right, so then this last bit of tape is just going to hold all of this up in place. Like that. We're not going to stitch there, but I am going to cut all of this off because it will get in my way. You can also use ribbon. I do know some people that do. It's just not for me, personally. All right. I'm going to put all that away because we're done. Now I've got all of our card slots. I'm actually going to stick these together so I don't lose the pieces. And because I want to do all the hole punching stuff at the same time. Now, because these were cut on the machine, I do technically already have the hole. Just make sure you take out the stuff. And then we're going to line the other hole up with the other hole. Seems simple enough. So this side's the sticky side, so I'm going to have its right sides up. We're going to line the holes up and then just press them together. So you should be able to see through your hole. I think I'm going to have this side up even though it's on a plane because that'll look cool. So we're going to stitch and back stitch. Just one, out of habit. I'm stitching around the edge. Now when I get to this end, it's a tight little curve. So you want to, I'm hand cranking. I usually always do so that we don't have issues. Flick the tails out of the way, back stitch. I'm back stitching out of habit. Okay, now see how it's a little bit curvy? If you twist it in the opposite direction and pull, I pull best this way, it flattens itself out. Magic little trick that I learned. Okie dokie. So, in this particular press, I've got this half. So here's where you have to decide which side's right side up. So I'm going to put it that way with the red underneath. Sometimes you might want to do it opposite. You have that option. We're going to put the top in, squish them together. Now I've got a cute little press stud. In our other half, we've got the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to peel off that double-sided tape at the bottom so we can get to the hole easy. Now because this is a cut hole by a machine, I personally think it's too big. This falls in there too easy, and I think eventually over time it's going to pull. So what I've got is a little 1-inch piece of base stabilizer, and I'm going to push this through there, and that's going to give us just more stability because that was quite a tight hole. So then we're going to pop that up. This goes in the top of the machine. Now this should hold. If you find after a while it stops holding, twist the little spring that's around the top and it'll go back to holding it in place for you. And then we just squish down. I'm going to smooth all of them back down. You can go back stuck to the thing. And then we're going to make sure that the press stud works because there's no point in making the whole thing and then at the end realizing that it's broken. So, press stud in, on, and done. Now you can tuck it under or you can leave it out. I've done them both ways. Both ways are fine. So, with that like that, I'm going to take a clip. I'm going to fold this over. Now I've got a little bit of the lining sticking out there, so I'm going to cut it now while it's easier to do so. And then I'm going to line up that angle. Now because this was cut with the machine, it's precision cutting and everything matches up just fine. I'm going to clip all the way around. I'm going to come and do this corner in case I stretch anything out of shape. We do the edges first. Clip and clip. And then we're going to come along this edge. Now, if you were doing it in leather, you will most likely have a leather glue. You could glue this in half. We don't need to get inside again. So if you wanted to, you could glue this in half. And to make it extra super flat, you could pop it in your heat press on cold. So don't turn it on, just squish it under there for an hour or two. And that will help to flatten it out. So I'm going to stitch, back stitch. Up the fold, stitch and back stitch. Trim off those tails. And that's now that bit done. Last but not least is our zipper. So I'm going to start with the lining piece and I'm going to pull off the tape and then fold this down so it's a nice straight line like so. Then I'm going to do the other long side. I like to do long sides first. So we fold it down so that it's straight. You don't want to pull it so it's weird and curvy. That won't help us out in the long run. Then you can pull off the little ends and bend it back. Same with the other end. Now I've got a little bit of tape everywhere. That's just going to help grip to the inside. So that's going to work out just fine. Now you can either spray this with some spray glue or do what I'm going to do. I'm going to use a 3/4 inch double-sided tape and just put a piece diagonally across each side. This will just help hold it until it's all stitched and make sure that it sits as flat as possible. Now, eventually over time, I'm sure the tape will give out, but by then it'll be lovely and smooth on the inside, so it won't matter. Peel off the backing, and now we just need some tape, some zipper tape, that is. We want red with gold teeth because that matches everything else I've got going on. Although you don't have to match, you could do something contrasting if you like. There to there. There is a measurement for how much zipper tape you need if you don't want to have to measure it and eyeball it like I do. I understand that's not for everyone. It gives people anxiety when they've got to guess. The pattern has the measurements. I'm just not giving them because it's not my pattern to give. Push the zipper pull on like that. Make sure it's even. And then I'm going to lay it down with the zipper on the zipper teeth. That's the top, so I want it to close at the top. So I'm going to start at this bottom edge and just push the zip down on top. So the double-sided tape holds that in place now. We can take this piece and peel off the backing. And then this is the trickiest part of the whole thing, is lining up the zipper pocket part even though you can't see the hole. All right. There to there, push it down, and then smooth that out. Okay, let's stitch around here. So I'm going to come to the front of the zip like I always do. And I'm just going to start just in front and stitch around. Cross the edge, down the other side, and then when we get back in line with the other side of where we started, zip it up so that the zip's not causing any ripples or anything. One more stitch. There. Now when we get back to the start, I'm going to go into that first hole and then stitch and back stitch. And that's it. Trim off all the tails. And then you want to flip it over and make sure that you caught all of the lining. If you missed a bit, it's not a big deal. I did it earlier in a live. If you miss a bit, you just do another set of stitches 1/4 inch out further. It just looks decorative, but we all know that it's there to stop any issues. So I guesstimated cutting this, so I'm actually just going to cut off a little bit more of this lining so it won't stick out from the vinyl. Taking off the tiniest amount, like that. Then just fold it in half. I've got this weird fluffiness that's actually from the cutting machine. I think my blade is blunt because I cut paper with it. That's my bad. It turns out you're meant to have different blades for fabric and paper like you do with scissors. I know for next time. So we're going to fold this over. And then we're going to grab this one and whack it on so that the card slots face out. So you can cut it this way or the other way. I have basically picked the dragon to be in the middle. That was a deliberate choice. So I've worked all of my cutting around that. Lining everything up. Making sure all of the sides of the vinyl all meet up together. Like that. Now if you find that the zipper is in your way, mine isn't, but if you find that it is a little bit long and the zipper is distorting these corners, Now that you've stitched it down, you can pull back the lining like that and then just trim off the excess zipper that's in there so that it's not in your way anymore. It really is that simple. Once it's stitched, anything past the stitch line is irrelevant. So you can just cut it off if it's in your way. Don't feel bad about that. It's fine. So I'm just lining all these edges up, working my way along. In a perfect world, I would stitch this with the the other machine because I think it would be nicer. Also, make sure that this isn't pulling. We're about to stitch it down, but I don't want it to be pulling on the stitches or pulling on the fabric. So I'm going to start here and just stitch around those edges. Everything's lined up beautiful, so I just have to go slow so I don't mess it up. There are a lot of layers. I like to stitch all these layers here. This is not for everyone. Your machine might not be able to handle that many layers. If you go back and watch the live, there are ways around that. Right, into the corner, pivot, down we go. Again, I'm not in a hurry. Angle, stitch, needle down, pivot, stitch. And trim the tails. And that's it. She's done. How quick was that? 20 minutes. And that was not even me hurrying. You can go faster if you really wanted to. You can edge coat these if you want to. I will be doing that as a separate video because it's not an absolute must. But I've got the dragon kind of cool and in the center. And then a matching red. This actually matches the Magdalena circle bag I did by Aura Rosa. So if people choose to, they could go and buy it at the set at the market on the weekend. But there you go, guys. It is that simple. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.